So the next question is for Mr. Crew. I know you mentioned you were going to follow up whether ICE is included in the definition of law enforcement with the memorandum of agreement.
Yes, I actually spoke, since we discussed that issue publicly, I spoke with both the county prosecutor's office and with an attorney general in the state division of criminal justice, both of whom were somewhat surprised by the question, quite frankly. They both expressed the view that they did not believe, in their opinion, that as we have discussed previously, that the memorandum of agreement was intended to apply to federal officials like ICE, that they're not a party to the agreement, they weren't part of developing the agreement, and they're not a signatory to the agreement. So they're both expressed the opinion to me that it wouldn't be directly related to that, and they were both pretty clear about that. However, I just wanted to point out also that when I discussed it with the Deputy Attorney General, who was very nice and very helpful, she indicated to me that the new administration in Trenton is reviewing, and there was already a plan to prepare a new updated memorandum of agreement with law enforcement. It was originally supposed to come out last fall, I think it was, and it was delayed, and now the new administration will be reviewing it. And she indicated to me that a new Deputy Attorney General will be assigned to oversee the Division of Criminal Justice's role and involvement in that. And she said that she thought our questions about the applicability to ICE of the terms of the memorandum of agreement and any relationship between it and immigration type of activities was an interesting question that the new administration might be interested in. So she told me that she would have the new Deputy Attorney General, once he officially takes over the role, reach out to me, and she expected that once he did so, that they would be willing to ask, to seek input from our board, from Dover, with respect to what concerns are and what questions there are, and then that the state may very well take that into consideration. I mean, there were no promises that they would even answer the questions or do anything, but that they would certainly listen. So I just wanted to share that with the board, and hopefully we'll have some more information as to where they stand in the review process soon.
Thank you for following up on that. I know it's been a while, so thank you for following up and for bringing it up. It's good to hear that at least we have it in your radar.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then the state budget includes funding for preschool expansion. The same preschool expansion grant that was offered last year will be offered this year with an increase. Our school did not apply last year. It seems we may not have been eligible last year, or we just didn't apply last year. But Wharton School District did apply last year and did get the award in community partnership with Head Start. So I guess my question is to you, Ms. Valestis. Will our board invite Head Start to educate us on the grant application partnership and just the programs they offer generally, and how Head Start works with our school district, since obviously they are students, eventually many of them become our students?
I think that what we need to do, and I believe the direction that we're taking right now, is first of all, we need to gather some additional information with regard to, because board members have raised questions with regard to what happened last year. So I have directed Mr. Becker that I'd like to have a memo regarding what happened, the grant application that we did not fill out, so that we have some additional information, some thoughts regarding preschool expansion, also to be included in that. So, I think that we can certainly keep that on our radar, but I would like to have additional information compiled and given to all the board members within the next week, and then we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Thank you. And this question may be for our administration or personnel. Increasing mental health resources for students increases school safety, according to many data and surveys. Studies and surveys. The American School Counselor Association recommends a minimum ratio of 250 students per counselor, and school districts with students that suffer intense needs are best served by a ratio of 100 students per counselor. Even Republican Governor Christie notably favored holistic approaches to preventing school violence, including greater access to mental health care and gun control. And then at the February 20th meeting, a question was raised about our district not yet hiring guidance counselors that were expected as provided by a grant, and maybe I misunderstood the question or the response. So I'd like to know, did we receive a grant to hire guidance counselors? And if so, what's the name of that grant? And are those counselors hired?
Okay.
Sure.
So, in regards to the grant, no, there was no grant.
No grant.
So, I can't give you.
Thank you.
It was an addendum to the base budget. Are those guidance counselors hired, was your question? No.
Do we expect to hire new guidance counselors?
No.
Or maybe not new, I'm sorry, more is really what I'm looking for.
I believe what the discussion was at this time, no, correct, Mr. Becker?
That's
Because
correct.
we're meeting the
Yeah.
ratio or over the ratio?
Yeah, and we actually, when we look at the efficiency standards now, I believe, Ms. Schoonmaker, that our support staff, we actually have more support staff than the state recommends. So we do hope, even though we don't have the new guidance counselors, we did hire an additional SAC. So we have a SAC, one SAC that goes between the high school and North Dover. We have one SAC that goes between East Dover and Academy Street. Students Assistance Counselor, I have to be careful after the last meeting, I don't want to get the wrong numbers. But when you look at that, we have those services. We have a child study team member placed in every building. We have Lou Taxiarco, the HIV counselor, that goes around to all the buildings. We have 5 counselors at the high school. We have 2 counselors at the middle school. We also have 3 Tiger Rep counselors. So we have quite a plethora of services that we do provide.
Mr. Becker, to interrupt, and when you say counselor, you're talking about guidance counselors who are
Counselors.
not mental health counselors, they're academic
Correct.
counselors.
That's true.
And only the Tiger Rap counselors are mental health counselors, correct?
Accurate, yep. Except for some of the child study team
I was
members
just gonna say.
who might be social workers and
Correct, and the student
psychologists. I don't want to
assistant
offend
counselors.
anybody.
Correct, and
Yeah.
student assistance
Yeah.
counselors also have mental health background.
However, the counselors, the school counselors, even though they're academic, they do have conflict resolution. So we do have some training there. We don't have those counselors in the budget for next year because it was just deemed as really something that wouldn't be viable. If we took the recommendation that we heard tonight, we'd be hiring 35 additional counselors. Now, if the board votes to hire 35 counselors, will be non-compliant in terms of efficiency standards. That could be somewhat of an issue.
I may resign and apply for that.
Yeah. But I think 35 counselors for a district our size. Even right now, we actually have more support staff than in most districts in our area. Not to say we can't, provide more services, and sometimes we don't provide internally, we provide externally.
What is the ratio that's recommended that you're saying we're above what the state is recommending? What is the recommendation?
I think I have 3 too many bodies. I have to look, I don't want to be inaccurate for you. But they give us a body count and a cost count, and they say that we have too many. Just as we also have to be very cautious of our administrators now. What they do is they don't look at the ratio of students per counselor. And of course, the Counselor Association has these wonderful recommendations, which I would expect. School nurses have their own association with their, I don't blame every association for having a recommendation that would enhance the membership of their people. But in terms of what they do is they look backwards as to what our staffing was years and years ago. And then they do the proportionality of that. So that's why in Dover sometimes we have fewer administrators, but we're told that we have too many administrators, only because it was so skewed back in the day. Is that accurate, Ms.
Yeah,
Sweeney?
that is.
I want to be sure I have it right. So, I think you got to look at that. But in terms of providing services, we probably provide more than most districts around, which is not to say it's not necessary. I think 35 counselors, or even if we go with the other ratio, we'd be hiring 17 counselors for a district like Dover, and I doubt there'd be much support for that kind of administrative load, because if you hire 17 counselors, you're going to be terminating 12 to 15 teachers. I'm not sure that's the trade-off that we want to do.
Thank you.
Just to add, those students who do need more of the mental health therapeutic services, then we find placements for them to support that.
100% correct. They'll either go to Tiger Rat, or a lot of times the students are being seen by external counselors and our internal people service coordinators to relay the information. How are they doing in class? How are they doing with their relationships? Sometimes even Tiger Rat will serve as an information source for psychiatric therapy. And John, we also have some out-of-district.
I was just going to say, we also have some students that have individualized education plans that provide specifically for intensive counseling. And oftentimes with some of the out-of-district placements, what is required is that the parents actually be part of the process. I know of a number of schools where they won't accept a student that is having emotional issues unless the parents will also sign on board and say that they will come to so many sessions so that the family can work collaboratively. So it isn't necessarily we're always meeting the needs in district, but we may be meeting the needs out of district through IEPs.
So we have a variety of those providing support, and I believe we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16 already that are supporting the different aspects for our students, academic, and then doing some other support and some student assistance, and then more intensive therapy. Yeah.
Like Mr. Taxiarco handles the HIV cases, which also involves some conflict resolution, and he works closely with the SACs because even though it's a substance abuse counselor, notice how careful I'm being? So even though it's a substance abuse counselor, quite often the role of those counselors is preventative, not simply dealing with substance abuse, but the causation that may lead to it, so they're working with the students in that domain too. So it's multi-layered, but I think we have a genteel sufficiency of counselors at this point.
Any other questions? Comments? All right. It's your turn.
New business.
New business, oh look, there's a meeting schedule. Okay, that's the new business. We actually really did discuss under old business, the new business of the grant. So that was new business. Got that. There's a meeting. Don't forget, tell everyone the budget hearing. And now we're going to have another public comment section. So if there is anyone in the audience who would like to make comments on educational issues and whatever you would like to make comments on that doesn't have to do with the things that we discussed tonight, now is your time to have your voice heard. Please give your name, your address, and hit it.
All right, so, sorry, I'm a bit ill. I'm Christopher Criollo. I live at 31B Union Street in Dover. I would like to briefly mention how the fact 2 Thursdays ago, as I'm pretty sure all of you are aware, Dover received a threat from a student. I'm not sure who the student is or whether the student was found out, but the school received a threat threatening for a student threatened to attack the school via the pep rally or third period. I'm kind of confused about that area. Not like it really matters, but the threat was imposed, and although the Dover High School imposed a higher police regulation on that certain day, I would like to mention, as a member of the community and as well as voicing other opinions of other people, many people believe, including myself, how the school handled the issue was a bit wrong, if people would say. People believe that the parents should have been notified earlier instead of a day. I looked at the times of certain things and they were released on the day. I know many friends of mine had parents taking their kids out of school due to concerns. And although I am aware that the school thought there was no viable threat, like if that judgment was wrong, I'm aware there was more police presence but it could have ended horribly for multiple students. So in the advent of such situations, I believe that the school should make more of an effort to alert the public of certain things, and so these kind of situations can be avoided. I'm also aware the rumor was spreaded on social media, and I believe such confusion could have been prevented if the school just made more of an effort to alert parents beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I really appreciate the fact that the student body is becoming involved in these things. If you don't mind, I'm going to have a response to this because I am. The fact of the matter is that these situations that you talk about are exquisitely difficult. There is a fine line between responding to something that may be a credible threat and creating a situation in which you panic people. So there is a procedure in place that is utilized whenever there is a potential threat to the school. Because the reality is there are oftentimes things that you might not hear about or whatever that are found not to be credible threats. And if every time that occurred we were to communicate with parents, we would create panic not only in the school itself, but in the community. So I'm telling you, it's a fine line. Is there a perfect solution to that? I don't know that there's a perfect solution, but I know that we have policies that are in place that will have, the minute that something is presented to a teacher or presented to an administrator, that there's a potential for a threat, there is an absolute policy that is followed the minute that that happens, which will include interviewing the students, trying to determine the credibility of the threat. Is this a real possibility? Is this a note someone crumbled up and threw on the floor and was just goofing around? Because those kinds of things occur too. So I just want to reassure you, I do understand your concerns, and I do understand you're saying you wish that, the word had gotten out there sooner so the parents didn't panic. One of the double-edged swords of social media is that sometimes there will be instances in which we get something like, the kid throwing a piece of paper on the floor, someone picking it up and going, oh my God, there's a bomb in the girls' room. We have to go through a process of determining whether or not that actually is true before we notify parents. But oftentimes, before we get to that point, everybody is already on their phone texting, oh, in so-and-so's classroom. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to reassure you that there are procedures in place and that we as a Board of Education expect those procedures to be followed. And when there is a threat that is determined to be a credible threat, you are going to notice what you saw on the second day here, because there really were like kind of two separate things that occurred. You're going to see police presence, and we're going to do everything that we possibly can to protect you, but also to notify your parents, because I'm a mom. Thankfully I was a mom before there were cell phones, so my kids couldn't actually text me and go, Mom, this is what's happening. I wouldn't find out about it until it was all over, which was kind of a good generation to raise children in. But thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate, and I think I saw you at the last meeting. You were at the last meeting and you spoke up. Please continue to come to meetings. We need to see students here. We need to see students who are going to speak their minds. This is the democratic, what you're seeing is a democratic process. And we need to hear you. Sometimes we'll agree, but we'll always hear you, okay? So thank you.
Yes. Okay, Katie Bartnick from Minehill. My little notes here, because I know I have 3 minutes.
It's okay.
First question, the reason I came here. I know my son tomorrow he's a high schooler. He's going to be going to the middle school to perform, to encourage the middle schoolers to join the marching band, which I think is wonderful. But it's been 3 years since the middle school jazz and choir has gone to Canfield Avenue School to encourage the Canfield Avenue students to go. My son was a 6th grader, and it was the last time that they went. And when he was in 7th and 8th grade, he never went to his elementary school to perform for those students. I'm hoping that we could possibly have a change and a look into that. At the same time, he performed in the school play, Chip over here, and they went and performed at all the other elementary schools in Dover, and was a little sad to find out that my son, who has siblings and a lot of potential people to attend the high school play from the Canfield Avenue School, were not performing there, didn't make any contact to say, hey, listen, let's do a little 30-minute act at Canfield to entice those students and those families to come to the Dover High School play. So I'm hoping that could change in the near future. The climate survey, personal note on it, I'm an educator myself. We did it in my own district that I work in, and it was wonderful. I hope you include parents as well as students and staff, because it really came out with, as long as you're using the correct wording, it will really come out and you will really see where it is. On that part, when it comes to counselors, the other point is to really look at your professional development that you're using for your actual staff, because the first people to notice, my t-shirt, to notice what's going on in the classrooms is the teachers and your support staff. And as long as you need as many counselors as you can, the people who notice what's going on with those kids isn't the parents, it's the teachers. They see it first. And if they can see the signs, if they can have a professional development that can send, and one of your SACs, just one of your PD days, even if it's an hour, it could prevent something. And it's really, really important.
We have about 1 minute to go.
Okay, so we got that. The SAC, the middle school, the climate survey. And my last thing was I did attend the Morris County School Board meeting that was last month. It was phenomenal, and I really had no issue with any of the questions that were going on. I actually found it informative to hear a different point of view, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
I know it's late, so we'll make it quick.
No,
Paula
go
Rivera,
ahead.
91 James Street. I was a graduate of the class of 2013. I humbly state that I was class valedictorian. That allowed me to go to the University of Connecticut, where I got a bachelor's of science in biology. I'm currently back home working for an ophthalmologist and a retina specialist in Mine Hill and applying to optometry schools.
Casey Hoops, Mine Hill. I also graduated class of 2013 from here. I went on to Rutgers University to receive my bachelor's in sociology, minoring in psych and education. Currently on my way to getting my master's in education. I'll graduate in May this year. And working towards becoming an elementary school teacher. We're here tonight to talk to you guys about potential facility use in the district, specifically concerning Girl Scouts.
Yes, so aside from being captain of the soccer team, president of the National Honor Society, and all of that stuff, the one thing that I always get asked in all of my resumes, whether that be jobs, college, medical school, is always Girl Scouting. I was fortunate enough to go from daisies all the way up through senior year of scouting, got my gold award, actually did my gold award here in Dover High School. I ran a career fair during the gym periods for students with kind of unconventional jobs, because some students don't want to be doctors, engineers, or lawyers. There's other jobs in the world other than that, so that's kind of what I brought. I remember in Academy Street School, we had Project Safe, and we had Girl Scouting through there. And it was 1 hour, all the girls went into a room, we got to do a bunch of crafts, we got to learn about different activities, and it was kind of like our little escape, and that built the foundation. Fast forward a couple of years, I got to be with my best friend in our troop that met every single Wednesday, which is unheard of in Girl Scouting pretty much, especially with a group of teenagers. We met every Wednesday. I was fortunate enough to represent our council in New Jersey. I was one out of the 5 girls out of 500 applicants who got to go to Houston to represent our council there. So Girl Scouting has been a huge part of my life, and I know how beneficial it can be for many girls, especially in our community.
Yeah, I had a similar Girl Scouting experience. I started in my Daisy troop in Mine Hill. My mom was actually my troop leader. Went on to Brownies in Mine Hill. That troop disassembled. It took me a few years to find a new troop, which I found in Jefferson. That troop disassembled. I finally found Paula's troop and joined that for the remaining time of my Girl Scout career. I also earned my Gold Award doing a reading program in Canfield Avenue School called Read All You Can, which challenged young kids to read as many books as they could in a month, and I made it kind of a fun competition for them, which also led kind of into my teaching career. It just became a really valuable part of my life. It gave me a chance every week of my high school career to talk about current issues that were happening in the news. It gave us a chance to kind of catch up on our lives, get college advice. All of these small things you don't really learn in the classroom, we got to learn through Girl Scouting. In high school, I was also in cheerleading, I was in color guard, I was in National Honor Society, so it was all of these things that I could just go to right after school in this facility. But Girl Scouting was kind of a thing that I had to get that extra help from my mom, from my brothers, whoever could drive me to my troop meetings. So we're here to just kind of talk about if we had that happen in Dover facilities, it would be a lot more convenient for parents, and it would kind of encourage parents to put their girls in this amazing organization if it was a little bit more convenient for them.
Yeah, so coming off of that, I know that a big thing is insurance. I do have a copy of the Girl Scouts secondary insurance that they do carry, and I know that's a huge part, so I don't know if you want to take a look at it. I know there's a facility request that we also would have to fill out and everything. I know we have talked about starting a Girl Scouting troop in the near future, but I do know of current troops that are looking for facilities to use. I know that some have to go to Mine Hill, their service center, even though most of the girls are from Dover, which is an extra trip for parents, and I know that busy schedules, that gets in the way, and I don't want really anything cheerleading girls from being able to have this amazing opportunity. Also, I know that there's another troop, there's not a leader, but there is someone from the Girl Scout Council who travels from Rockaway to meet with the girls, and she's really struggling to find a place for 40-plus girls, and that's ranging from daisies, which is kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, to 8th, and that's the most important part. We recruited her 8th grade, and then she found a place and we were able to keep her, so I know that that's the crucial age to keep Girl Scouts, so I do have a printout of that if you need that as well.
We just kind of wanted to open that discussion because it was so valuable for us in our lives, and we always had to travel to outside venues, churches in the neighborhood, things like that.
And we want you all to know that Girl Scouting is more than the 3 C's, camping, cookies, and crafts.
The cookies are pretty good though. Yeah, let me just say, ladies, you've got about a minute to go, and I gave you a double
Thank you so
time to
much.
get to it.
So you have to get double
And our
time.
spiel is just Girl Scouting builds girls up, courage, confidence, and character, and I think we're a good representation of that, and we hope to build many girls from Dover and Mine Hill and have the opportunity to do that as well.
I think that, I was a Girl Scout leader also, so,
Thank you for that.
I think it's a fabulous organization, and it does amazing things for young women, and as you said, builds confidence and courage and all sorts of things that people don't realize. No, we're not really sitting there just, well, actually, when I was a Girl Scout, we did sit there and actually make dresses and learn how to cook. But that was 100 years ago. Certainly would like to, did you take a look at our policies online to see our use of school facilities form?
I had briefly, not if it was updated recently.
Okay, so take a look at that. We can certainly have a discussion about it. I'd like you to come back to another meeting. And, one of the questions, the initial questions I know that I have is, are you starting out, is it going to be predominantly our Mine Hill and Dover, which Mine Hill at the high school level especially is, our Mine Hill Dover kids. Is that what you're really talking about initially? I know you mentioned some other communities, and I guess my question about that has to do with why they're not having it in their community, because as you said, access is important. When we did Scouts, we walked down the hall, from one room, we finished school, we walked down the hall, we went to Girl Scouts, and, the kitchen at Canfield Avenue School was where we had our Girl Scout meetings.
Yeah,
So,
our focus right now is Dover and Mine Hill.
right. So Dover and Mine Hill is what you're talking about. So, we will certainly take a look at this.
Congratulations, and you've
Yeah,
been away
wow.
for a while, but Dover now has a community center. I don't know if you're aware of that you can have use of, and that has a kitchen and a big area and recreational place, and the town is looking for people to use